I'm Nancy King, 36, a single mom who poured her heart into making my dad's 60th birthday unforgettable. I spent months preparing a photo album, old family pictures, handwritten notes, every moment, carefully chosen to make him smile. Our suburban Cleveland home buzzed with family and friends' laughter filling the air. I held the gift tightly, my chest tight with anticipation, waiting for the moment Dad would open it in front of everyone. But just as I set the album down on the table, a sharp ripping sound tore through the chatter. My heart dropped. I spun around and froze. My brother stood over a trash can, the album shredded at his feet. Oops. Just an accident. He sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. A few relatives burst out laughing, and my mother rushed to defend him. Oh, come on. Don't make a fuss. He didn't mean it. I stood there, fists clenched, nails digging into my palms, my face burning hot. The room fell silent except for the snickers of a few onlookers, and Dad's face bewildered and hurt. Not a single person spoke up for me. I swallowed the lump in my throat, grabbed my bag, and walked out without a word, vowing this would not be the end of it. That moment wasn't just about a ruined gift. It lit the fuse for a chain of events that would flip our family upside down. I had no idea how far my brother's betrayal would go or how I would fight back. Before I go on, I want to ask you something. What time is it, where you're watching this, and what city are you in? I'd love to know where in the world you're listening to my story from. To understand why things fell apart, let me take you back to my family. Growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, I always felt like I was playing second fiddle in the King household. My parents, William and Frances, had a habit of showering praise on my brother, Stephen King, for every deal he closed as a hot-shot marketing executive. His name was always on their lips. This Stephen at his latest campaign or fancy client dinner, stealing the spotlight at every family gathering, I didn't mind much. Or at least I told myself I didn't. I was busy enough as a single mom working long hours at the bank building a life I could be proud of. But deep down I wanted one moment to shine, to show Dad I could make him proud, too. That moment was supposed to be his 60th birthday. I'd spent months crafting a photo album, a tribute to his life. I scoured attics and old boxes for family pictures. Dad, as a young man, our childhood camping trips, Mom's old Polaroids. Each photo was a memory I pieced together, gluing them onto pages with handwritten notes about the stories behind them. I spent over $300 on custom binding archival paper and a leather cover, pouring my heart into every detail. It wasn't just a gift. It was a piece of our family's history meant to make Dad smile in a way I hadn't seen in years. The day of the party arrived and our suburban Cleveland home was alive with guests. Dad was in high spirits, laughing with old friends, his eyes crinkling the way they did when he was truly happy. I caught a glimpse of Stephen across the room, his posture stiff, his smile forced. His fiancée, Diane Porter, stood nearby, chatting politely, but glancing at him with a furrowed brow. I should have known something was off, but I was too focused on the moment, on handing Dad that album, on seeing his reaction. I set the album on the gift table, my fingers lingering on the leather cover, imagining Dad flipping through it. Later, the party hummed along with guests toasting Dad's milestone. I was chatting with a cousin when a sharp, unmistakable sound cut through the noise paper, tearing like a knife through my chest. My heart sank. I pushed through the crowd, my eyes darting to the gift table. It was empty. I spun around searching until I saw the trash can in the corner. Its lid slightly ajar. My legs moved before my brain caught up. There it was. My album, its pages ripped. Photos, crumpled, the leather cover slashed. Ink from my notes smeared across torn memories. My throat tightened and a wave of betrayal washed over me. I looked up and Stephen was there, leaning against the wall, his eyes cold. He didn't say a word, but his smirk said enough. I wanted to demand answers, to scream at him for destroying something so personal, but the weight of Dad's laughter nearby stopped me. I couldn't ruin his day. Not like this. I stood there staring at the wreckage of my gift, my hands trembling. This wasn't just about an album. It was about Steven's need to tear me down to keep me in his shadow. I didn't know it then, but that moment was the spark that would unravel our family, exposing truths we'd all ignored for too long. Right there at the party, I had to confront Steven. My pulse was racing, the torn pages of my album burning in my mind. I weaved through the crowd, my eyes locked on him as he lounged against the wall, sipping a drink like nothing had happened. "Steven," I said, my voice low but sharp. "Why did you destroy my gift?" He didn't even flinch. A slow mocking grin spread across his face. "Oh, that old thing, just an accident," he said, his tone so smug it made my skin crawl. No apology, no remorse, just that infuriating smirk, daring me to push further. I stood there, fists balled lead, wanting to shout to make him admit what he'd done. But the chatter of guests and Dad's laughter nearby held me back. I wasn't going to let Steven turn this into a spectacle. I grabbed my coat and slipped out the front door, my breath shaky in the cool Cleveland night. I needed to get away to keep my cool before I said something I'd regret in front of Dad. The image of those crumpled photos, my handwritten notes smeared with ink, kept flashing in my head. I'd poured my heart into that gift, and Steven had treated it like garbage. Worse, he enjoyed it. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, replaying his words. How could my own brother do this? What had I ever done to him? Later that evening, my best friend, Carol Harris, showed up at my doorstep. She'd been at the party and saw me leave. "Nancy, what happened back there?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent. I let it all spill out, the album. Steven's sneer, the way he dismissed it as nothing. Carol sat with me on the couch, her presence steadying me as I vented my anger and hurt. "He's always been like this," I said, my voice cracking. "Always needing to be the center of attention, always putting me down." Carol nodded, her eyes full of understanding. "You don't deserve this," she said. "You put so much love into that gift, and he stomped all over it." Her words didn't erase the pain, but they helped me breathe a little easier, grounding me when I felt like I was falling apart. I thought the worst was over, but then my phone buzzed. A text from Steven. My stomach twisted as I opened it. "Nice try with that scrapbook, sis. Too bad it ended up where it belongs," it read, followed by a winking emoji. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. He wasn't just cruel. He was relishing it. I wanted to fire back to tell him exactly what I thought of him, but I stopped myself. Replying would only give him what he wanted, a reaction, a fight. Instead, I tossed my phone onto the couch, my hands trembling with rage. Carol saw my face and grabbed the phone, her jaw dropping as she read the message. "He's unbelievable," she muttered. "Nancy, you can't let him get away with this." She was right. Steven's text wasn't just a taunt. It was a challenge, a reminder that he thought he could walk all over me and get away with it. I'd spent years brushing off his jabs, telling myself it was just how he was. But this was different. This wasn't just about a ruined gift. It was about him trying to erase my place in the family to make sure I stayed in his shadow. I paced my living room, Carol watching quietly, giving me space to process. "I'm not going to let him win," I said finally, my voice steady for the first time that night. "Not this time." As Carol left, promising to check in tomorrow, I sat alone staring at the ceiling. Steven's actions weren't just a one-off. They were a pattern, a way to keep me small. I didn't know how I'd make him face the consequences, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind raced with questions. Why did Steven hate me so much? Was it jealousy, spite, or something deeper? I thought about Dad, how happy he'd been before everything went wrong, and how I couldn't let Steven ruin that memory. I wasn't sure what my next step would be, but one thing was clear. I was done letting my brother walk all over me. 2 days later, I made a choice that shook things up. I'd done something I thought was generous. paid a $2,000 deposit for his wedding venue, a chic Italian restaurant in downtown Cleveland, as a gift to him and Diane. It was my way of showing support despite his constant need to overshadow me. But after he destroyed my album and taunted me, I was done playing nice. I picked up the phone and called the restaurant. "I'm canceling the deposit for Stephen King's wedding," I told the manager, my voice steady. "Refund it to my account." The manager hesitated, then confirmed it would be processed. I hung up, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Stephen didn't deserve my help. Not after what he'd done. By that afternoon, my phone was blowing up with notifications. Stephen had taken to Facebook, posting a long rant about how I was sabotaging his happiness, accusing me of being jealous and petty. "My sister can't stand to see me thrive," he wrote, painting himself as the victim. My inbox filled with messages from distant relatives and family friends. Some curious, others outright accusing me of stirring drama. I scrolled through the comments, my chest tightening. Stephen had twisted everything, making it seem like I was the one tearing our family apart. I wanted to fire back to expose his cruelty, but I knew that would only feed his narrative. Instead, I shut off my phone and tried to focus on work, but the sting of his words lingered. The next morning, Mom showed up at my house unannounced. Frances stood in my living room, her arms crossed her face, a mix of disappointment and frustration. "Nancy, why would you cancel Stephen's wedding deposit?" she asked, her tone sharp. "You know how important this is to him. You're causing so much trouble for no reason." I stared at her, stunned. I'd expected her to understand, to see how Stephen had hurt me. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm. "He destroyed the album I made for Dad. He mocked me for it. Why should I keep supporting him?" She shook her head, brushing off my words. "You're being selfish," she said. "You could have talked to him instead of escalating things." I felt my throat tighten, the unfairness of it all hitting me hard. Mom had always favored Stephen, but hearing her defend him now after everything cut deeper than I expected. She left without another word, leaving me alone with my thoughts. That evening, my phone rang. It was Diane. I braced myself, expecting another lecture, but her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Nancy, I owe you an apology," she said. I froze, caught off guard. Diane explained that she'd been at the party, seen Stephen's behavior, the way he'd laughed off ruining my gift, his arrogant dismissal when I confronted him. "I thought I knew him," she said, her voice heavy. "But that night, and the way he's been acting since, it's like I'm seeing the real Stephen. He's so selfish, so full of himself. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." I sat down, my heart racing. Diane's words were a lifeline, a validation of everything I'd been feeling. "You don't have to apologize," I told her. "I'm just glad you see him for who he is." She sighed, promising to call again soon. Diane's call shifted something in me. For the first time in days, I felt like I wasn't alone in this fight. Stephen's actions weren't just hurting me, they were starting to unravel his own life. I didn't know what Diane would do next, but her words gave me a spark of hope. I wasn't going to let Stephen's lies on social media or Mom's accusations break me. I'd made my stand by canceling that deposit, and I wasn't backing down. As I sat in my quiet house, I realized this was bigger than a ruined gift or a family argument. It was about standing up for myself, about refusing to let Stephen's spite define me. I didn't have a plan yet, but I knew one thing. I was ready to fight back whatever it took. A week later, the consequences hit hard. I was at my kitchen table sipping coffee when Diane called again. Her voice was firm, almost cold. "Nancy, I've can-led the wedding," she said. "I'm done with Stephen." My jaw dropped. She explained she'd gone back to the Italian restaurant in downtown Cleveland and withdrawn the deposit, my $2,000, which she promised would be returned to me soon. "It's not just about the money," she said. "The way he trashed your album, the way he brushed it off with that arrogant smirk, it showed me who he really is. I can't marry someone so selfish. I listened, my heart pounding, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over me. Diane's decision was a bombshell, a crack in Stephen's carefully crafted image. I thanked her, my voice shaky, and hung up, still processing the news. Stephen's world was unraveling, and I hadn't even lifted a finger this time. That afternoon, my phone rang again. It was Dad. His tone was heavy, accusing. "Nancy, did you talk Diane out of the wedding?" he demanded. I froze, stunned by the question. "Dad, no," I said, my voice cracking. "I didn't do anything." Diane saw Stephen's true colors herself. But he wasn't convinced. "You can lend that deposit and now the wedding's off," he said. "You've gone too far this time." My chest tightened, his words, cutting deeper than Mom's had. I tried to explain about the album, Stephen's cruelty, Diane's call, but Dad interrupted, insisting I was stirring up trouble. "You need to fix this," he said before hanging up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me. My own father thought I was the villain and Stephen was getting away with everything. I couldn't let this go on. Stephen's lies on Facebook were still spreading, painting me as the jealous sister out to ruin his life. I needed help to shut it down. That's when I reached out to Cynthia Burke, a lawyer recommended by a coworker. I met her at her office in Cleveland, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. I laid out everything. Stephen's destruction of my gift, his mocking text, his social media rants. Cynthia listened, jotting notes, her expression unreadable. "This isn't just about rumors," she said when I finished. "It's defamation. We can send a cease and desist letter to make him stop." I nodded, feeling a spark of control for the first time in weeks. "Do it," I said. "I want him to know I'm not backing down." As we dug deeper, Cynthia dropped another bombshell. She'd done some research and found that Stephen had a history of selfish behavior, stories from former coworkers about him taking credit for their work, even an old college friend who'd cut contact after he'd betrayed their trust. "Diane called me yesterday," Cynthia added. "She's completely done with him. Apparently, his attitude after the party, bragging about how he'd handled you, was the final straw." I leaned back in my chair, stunned. Stephen's arrogance wasn't just hurting me. It had cost him, his fiancée, his reputation, everything. Cynthia's words were a strange comfort, proof that I wasn't imagining his cruelty. "What's next?" I asked. She outlined a plan, a formal letter to Stephen demanding he remove the posts and stop spreading lies, with legal action as a backup if he didn't comply. Driving home, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Dad for blaming me, relief that Diane had seen the truth, and determination to fight back. Stephen's actions had pushed me to a breaking point, but they'd also pushed others away from him. Diane's decision to cancel the wedding wasn't my doing, but it felt like justice. Still, Dad's call noted at me. I wanted him to understand, to see Stephen for who he was, but I didn't know how to make that happen without hurting him more. For now, I had Cynthia in my corner, and that was enough to keep me going. Stephen had crossed a line, and I was ready to draw one of my own, no matter what it took. A month later, I wanted to give my dad something meaningful. The sting of Stephen's betrayal and Dad's accusations still lingered, but I refused to let those moments define us. I decided to salvage what was left of the photo album I'd made for his 60th birthday. The torn pages and crumpled photos were a painful reminder of that night, but I spent weeks carefully restoring them, reprinting photos, taping torn edges, rewriting notes. The leather cover was beyond repair, so I chose a simple new binding focusing on the memories inside. I wanted to honor Dad, to show him that our family's history meant more than one cruel act. My plan was to host a small photo exhibition at Cuyahoga Valley National Park, a place Dad loved for its quiet trails and open spaces. It felt right to share those memories somewhere he felt at peace. I couldn't do it alone, so I called Carol. She jumped in without hesitation, taking charge of the logistics, booking the park's community center, arranging tables, and printing large-format photos for display. "This is going to be perfect for your dad," she said, her voice full of enthusiasm as we sorted through images at my kitchen table. Carol kept things moving, coordinating with park staff and setting up a simple layout for the exhibit. Her organizational skills, keeping my vision on track. She didn't pry into my feelings or offer advice this time, just focused on making the event happen, which was exactly what I needed. We worked late into the night, ensuring every photo told a story. Dad's old fishing trips, our childhood summers, Mom and Dad's wedding day. Each one felt like a step toward healing. The day of the exhibition arrived and I stood at the community center, my heart racing as guests began to arrive, family, friends, neighbors, and a few of Dad's old colleagues. I'd invited Mom and Dad, but hadn't heard back, so I wasn't sure they'd come. The room filled with soft chatter as people wandered past the photos, smiling and sharing stories. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "Nancy, this is beautiful." It read, "I'm so impressed by what you've done for your dad. Thank you for reminding me what family can be." Her words hit me hard, a quiet nod to the bond we'd formed through Stephen's mess. I typed a quick reply thanking her, my chest warm with gratitude. Diane's support meant more than I could say. She'd seen the worst of my brother and still chose kindness. Halfway through the event, I saw Dad walk in his face, unreadable. Mom was beside him, her expression softer than the last time we'd spoken. I held my breath as Dad moved from photo to photo, his fingers tracing the edges of images I'd painstakingly restored. His eyes lingered on a picture of us fishing when I was 10, his smile so wide it made my throat tighten. When he reached the end of the display, he turned to me, his eyes misty. "Nancy," he said, his voice low and rough. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have blamed you for what happened with Stephen." He paused, swallowing hard. This means everything to me. I'm so sorry." I stepped forward, wrapping my arms around him, tears stinging my eyes. "It's okay, Dad," I whispered. "I just wanted you to have this." We stood there holding on to each other, the weight of the past weeks lifting just a little. Mom joined us, her hand resting on my shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of her own regrets. The exhibition wasn't just about the photos. It was about rebuilding what Stephen had tried to break. As guests shared memories with Dad, laughing over old stories, I saw him light up in a way I hadn't seen since before the party. Carol caught my eye from across the room, giving me a thumbs up, her grin wide. The day wasn't perfect. Stephen's absence was a quiet reminder of the rift, but it was enough. Dad's apology, Diane's message, the photos that held our history. They were proof that love could outlast spite. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be, standing beside Dad, surrounded by the family we'd chosen to keep. 2 months after the party, Stephen tried to reach out. I was sorting through paperwork at my kitchen table when an envelope arrived. His handwriting unmistakable on the front. My stomach twisted, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a letter, his words neat and deliberate. "Nancy," it began. "I owe you an apology. I was jealous your independence the way your friends and coworkers respect you. It got under my skin. I shouldn't have destroyed your gift. I'm sorry." I read it twice, searching for sincerity, but all I could see was his smirk from that night. The way he'd called it, an accident without remorse. The letter felt like a performance, a last-ditch effort to save face after his life had unraveled. I folded it up, my hand steady, and set it aside. I wasn't ready to forgive, not after everything he'd done. I decided then and there to cut contact to protect the boundaries I'd fought so hard to build. That choice wasn't easy, but it felt right. Stephen's jealousy had driven a wedge between us long before the party, and his letter only confirmed what I'd suspected: he'd resented me for years. Not for anything I'd done, but for who I was. I didn't owe him a response or a second chance. I tucked the letter into a drawer, a reminder of why I needed to stay firm. My focus was on moving forward, not reopening old wounds. I'd spent too long letting his actions weigh me down, and I wasn't going back to that. A few days later, Mom came over, her face softer than I'd seen in months. Frances sat across from me at my dining table, her hands fidgeting with a coffee mug. "Nancy," she said quietly, "I've been wrong about a lot of things." Her voice wavered as she admitted she'd favored Stephen, always praising his career while overlooking my efforts. "I saw him as the one who needed lifting up," she said. "But I didn't see how it hurt you. I'm going to do better." Her words caught me off guard, stirring a mix of relief and pain. I'd waited years to hear her say that, but it still ached to know how long it had taken. "Mom," I said, reaching for her hand. "I just want us to be honest with each other." She nodded, her eyes misty, promising to try. It wasn't a full fix, but it was a start, a crack in the wall we'd built between us. Then came news from Cynthia. I met her at her office, the same one where we'd planned to tackle Stephen's lies. She leaned back in her chair, a faint smile on her face. "It's done," she said. "Stephen's taken down his posts, and he's been warned about further consequences." Her cease and desist letter had worked. Stephen had backed off, no longer spreading rumors about me online. Cynthia's efficiency was a lifeline, proof that standing up to him had been worth it. "You've got a strong case if he tries anything else," she added, her tone confident. I thanked her, feeling a weight lift. The rumors that had haunted me, calling me jealous as petty, were finally silenced. It wasn't just about the posts. It was about reclaiming my voice, my truth. As I drove home from Cynthia's office, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Stephen's letter, Mom's admission, Cynthia's victory. They were pieces of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve for months. I'd spent so long fighting to be seen, to prove I wasn't the villain Stephen made me out to be. Now, with Mom's promise and the rumors gone, I could finally breathe. Cutting Stephen out wasn't about revenge. It was about choosing myself, about protecting the life I'd built. I thought of Dad's apology at the exhibition. Diane's kind words, Carol's unwavering support. They were my family now, the ones who showed up when it mattered. Stephen's absence left a hole, but it was one I could live with. For the first time, I felt free, not just from his shadow, but from the need to prove I was enough. By the summer, I knew what family really meant. Dad and I had found our way back to each other, our bond stronger after the exhibition. We'd spend weekends together, sharing coffee and old stories, his laughter filling the gaps left by months of tension. He tried to bridge the divide with Stephen, even suggesting a family meeting, but I held firm. "Dad," I said gently, "I'm done with him." Stephen's letter, his half-hearted apology hadn't changed what he'd done. His jealousy had torn us apart, and I wasn't opening that door again. I'd also stepped back from Mom. Despite her promise to change, her years of favoring Stephen left a scar too deep for quick fixes. I needed space, and I wasn't ready to let her back in. Word reached me that Stephen had left Cleveland, moving to some city out west. His reputation had crumbled. Friends distanced themselves after Diane's decision, and his coworkers whispered about his selfish streak. The life he'd built on charm and bravado had fallen apart. His actions catching up to him. I didn't feel triumph, just a quiet relief that he was gone. His absence meant I could finally live without looking over my shoulder, without expecting another jab or lie to unravel my peace. Cynthia called one afternoon with an update. "Stephen's under a legal microscope now," she said, her voice crisp. She'd secured a formal agreement, ensuring he couldn't spread more rumors or drag my name through the mud. "If he tries anything, we've got him," she added, her confidence steadying me. Cynthia's work had been a shield protecting me when I felt most exposed. Knowing Stephen's lies were legally silenced gave me a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. I thanked her, my gratitude deeper than words could convey. Looking back, I saw the truth about family. It wasn't about blood or shared history. It was about respect, about the people who lifted you up instead of tearing you down. Dad, Carol, Diane, even Cynthia, they'd shown me what that meant, standing by me when it mattered most. Stephen's selfishness had cost him everything. His fiancée, his family, his place in our world. His story was a warning. Actions have consequences and cruelty leaves you alone. I'd learned to choose who I let in to guard my heart without losing it. My life was fuller now, not because of who I'd cut out, but because of who I'd kept close. Thank you for listening to my story. Share your thoughts below. What would you do in my